Welcome back to another episode of Faith X Life, where we dissect how our faith intersects with our life. Today's podcast comes from a word the pastor gave of the power of prayer, and I feel like this brought on a lot of self-reflection in this season, or what the word he was giving.
Yeah.
Sometimes we look, and one of the first points he brought up was what you feed will grow and what you starve will die. And he was saying, pay attention to what you're feeding and pay attention to what you're starving. And it created such a thought process that was going on in my mind about, okay, what are the areas that I'm feeding that I don't realize is being fed that shouldn't be there, and where it has my routine, or where has how I functioned in my everyday life changed into where I'm starving the things that need to be present in my life. And I immediately went to self-reflection, and I quickly had to pull out because I was like, I don't want to miss anything else that he's talking about.
That's real.
But it made me think about where I was in my relationship with God, and understanding of what are the things that will create that closeness again, and the non-separation, because it's so easy to feed your flesh.
Yeah.
It's so easy to feed the things that you feel are important, or you think they're important, and kind of put what's starving on the back burner, the spiritual side of who you are.
That's good. And I think I love, like, in the context of the messages that he's been bringing lately about the season, like season changing and timing, it was such a critical point. I mean, because it's part of our declarations and our 5 DQs, like that part of what we feed will grow and what we starve will die. Like, that's what we're supposed to remember. But like, in the context of things changing and seasons changing, like that acknowledgement, like you said, that evaluation of, like, it's in our control. Like, what we feed in our lives is going to grow, and what we starve in our lives is going to die. And taking a look at that, like, for where we're going and for what we want to come with us and what we don't.
That's so good.
Come on. So the next takeaway point from Sunday's message was, why accept sickness when we can be healed? And that was, he was coming out of, James chapter 5, verse 13 through 18, and saying that, like, when someone is sick, like, the fact that we have the opportunity for like the laying on of hands, or confessing our faults one to another so that we can be healed, those things are available. And so he did the example of, like, if someone misses church and then they come back after a month or so and they say, I was sick, that's why I wasn't there. He's like, that's the point of the community of believers, for us to come together and believe for healing. And so it's just like, why accept the state of sickness? And we look at physical sickness, but in any area, like you said, in our relationship with God, like, if there's something not right, some dis-ease or disease or illness, or in our souls, and looking at our mental health and things, like, why accept the sickness when we can be healed?
Right. He also gave that example of, he's like, when you're going through the sickness and there's a laying of hands, and he was like, is it just oil just being, slapped upside your head? And that's like, well, no, there is an impartation that
power
takes place, that invokes the healing, and that doctors and going to the hospital isn't bad, because those are tools meant for us to get better. But aren't recognizing the power that we have in the midst to be healed.
That's good.
And it's like, why would we go, or why wouldn't we use the opportunity as a church, being that hospital, so to speak, in conjunction or before we go. And I think it's losing focus of the seeking, when he was saying seek your healing from God, because he's there to do it, but man's always in that way, in the way. And it's like, this is the medication you need, this is the appropriate steps to be well, when you could be free from all of that.
Come on.
And you just have to seize the opportunity because it's there.
Come on, that's right. He's not, like you said, he's not minimizing doctors or what they can do, but oftentimes we rush to that instead of accepting like the power and the authority we have for healing because of Jesus. So why accept it? It's number 3. Time creates the opportunity for purpose to take place. So Pastor always tells us we're not purpose driven, we're time driven.
Come on.
Because if we have or look at a purpose, like, time is what creates the atmosphere for purpose to be fulfilled. And so when we look at, he's talking just in the midst of the power of prayer and how it can be hard to wait. And it's like, if we're looking at just getting the answer, which is like a purpose fulfillment, a purpose driven thing, then it makes it that that when we're praying, we're also looking for the fulfillment of time to create the atmosphere that the answer to our prayer needs to be in.
Right. I mean, you get tired of praying, and when you don't see the manifestation, and sometimes you go into that questioning, and you go into that non-believing, and that, okay, I don't see it, so and so then we don't continue to pray. We just we stop, and sometimes the prayer becomes the focus is lost in prayer, because we're not seeing for what the prayer is doing in the midst, because there's always something happening spiritually before it manifests in a physical. And a lot of times we don't look at that. We just look at what's not happening physically, and so then either we stop or we limit what we're praying and how we're praying.
That's good. You took us right into the last takeaway. Go ahead, sir.
Let's go.
Believers have to pray or they will stop believing. And like you were saying, prayer will cause us to wait and believe. Like, it's easy, especially when we're not seeing what we were expecting to see, or the like the results of our prayer. It can be easy to underestimate like the power of prayer. But just because we're not seeing what we thought we would see in the timing that we thought we would see it, doesn't mean that the power of prayer is any less than what it is. And sometimes we're waiting for a timing that we're not aware of. You know, I've been having a lot of conversations lately about how things that I would have chosen if I were God, what I would have, it was something very simple. Someone wanted it to snow, and I was like, no, thank you, and just looking at like why I wanted it not to snow and why they wanted it to snow and what the implications of that were. If I were God, I would have probably messed it up for everybody,
Right. I mean, yeah, that's really good. I think we ignore process. In the midst of timing, because if you put timing before process is finished, then you can delay purpose.
You're right.
Being fulfilled, and in that process, once you have finished, then timing can come forth and can be. And I think that sometimes process especially when it's a long process,
Right,
we lose sight of, well, the timing should have been now.
Yeah.
Just adding to your point,
Come
because
on.
that's really key.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that leads us into our next point.
Come on.
Pastor talks about like you're time driven, not purpose driven.
Yeah.
And we tend to think that purpose is put before time, but without being in the correct timing, you can't correctly fulfill purpose.
So good.
And just knowing that when it's time, and time is lined up, you can say it's time and totally miss purpose, because purpose was for the timing beyond.
Come on, you're right.
And it's important to know where you are in the midst of time, because time governs everything that we do. When we wake up, when we go to sleep, how we function throughout the day, when we schedule things, when we interact with people, relationships, it's governed all in the midst of time.
Yeah, that's good. It reminds me of James chapter 1. The verse, I'm not sure, but it says, let patience have its perfect work,
right?
So that you may be lacking, perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And I know when I was looking into the wordings of that, it was that so that if we let patience have its perfect work, so in the midst of the context of Sunday's message, it's the patience in prayer, like waiting. It's like if we let patience have its perfect work, then all the surrounding, all the situations surrounding what we're waiting for will be perfect and complete.
Let's go.
Lacking nothing.
Okay.
Come on.
Go ahead.
So if we get the answer to our prayer in the time that God has allotted for it, set for it, then we don't have to manipulate situations around or anything. Everything surrounding it will be perfect and complete, lacking nothing.
Come on.
So if we can just wait and have the faith to believe in the midst of even what we're not seeing,
so good.
We will see the manifestation of the power of prayer.
Okay.
Let's go. All right, well, that was it for our takeaways. We would love to hear from you. Like, what were some of the takeaways that you took from Sunday's message? And if you haven't listened to it yet, we're going to have the link to the message in the description, and encourage you, even if you were here, to go back and take a listen, because there's always something new, always another angle. And then after you've listened to it, come back and let us know what were some takeaways that you took away from Sunday's message.
Because there was so much here.
Yes, sir.
Going back, and for us, because we like to go back and listen, and there was so many nuggets that we were just like, we had to pause at some point, because the revelation that was going forth was almost just too much to handle. So I just want to add that
that's right.
Going back is important, because then there are things that you'll grab that are important to you, and that you may have caught that we didn't.
Come on, and you'll see it from another side. And so we need the way that it ministered to you. So share it with us, okay? Leave it in the comments so that other people can benefit from it as well.
Let's go.
So just some housekeeping stuff. We have worship night this Sunday, November 13th. November 13th at 6 p.m. And we would love for you to come. It's a time that's been set aside for us to enter into breakthrough praise and intimate worship.
Come on.
And we would love for you to be there. Us coming together and pursuing God's presence. We do it every Sunday, but this is set aside just for praise and worship. So this Sunday, 6 p.m.
Be there.
Be there. We're not going to say or be square. It's fine. Just be there. Okay. But that's it. We love you. We're so glad that you were a part for another episode of Faith X Life. We hope to see you next time as we are here dissecting how our faith intersects with our lives.
See you next time.